Hello, this is Esotic, and this will hopefully be a video that explains a little bit more in detail about the performance delta, how it works, the INI file, adjustments, settings that you can change, and just a little bit of my thoughts and feelings about performance deltas and what they mean and how to read them and stuff like that. So I have my little topics over here that I'm going to try to follow this outline sort of. So the Performance Delta app, I initially felt like I couldn't trust the Performance Delta in Assetto Corsa. It just seemed like it was wrong a lot. Especially, you maybe notice it as you were driving to the start-finish line. It would say one thing, and then as you get closer, it would just automatically sort of adjust and like catch up and realize that it was showing you the wrong value. And I found that to be annoying. I think the new Performance Delta that they updated in 1.7 is a lot better. But I've honestly just got so used to using mine, and I really like it. And I feel like the Performance Delta from Kunos, it is better. I was doing some comparisons, and I still feel like it gets off sometimes. Like it's not showing me the right delta, and I don't exactly know why. And the way that my delta is calculating, it's maybe a little different than the way that their delta is calculating. One of the prime limitations, one of the main limitations of my delta is that it's not necessarily considering your best lap. It doesn't really care about your best lap. It's mainly just tracking your best time to every single position on the track. And so I'm going to get a little bit nerdy for a second, and I'm going to try to explain what that means. So in Assetto Corsa, the API provides you this position on track value, and it's just a floating point number, and it goes from 0.0001 all the way up to 0.9999. And so if the start finish line is roughly 0, and as you drive around it goes up in value, and somewhere around here is probably 0.5, and you keep driving around 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, 0.9, and then you get back to here, and it gets to 0.9999, then flips back over to 0, or 0.0001. And so as you're driving around, the Delta apps are basically tracking how long it took you to get to each position on track. And my app is doing this 10,000 times roughly per lap, because there's the 0.0000 to 0.9999 is 10,000 basically. So as you're driving around, the delta is showing you the difference between your best time at every single position on track and your current time. So like in this instance, it took 1.6 seconds to get to this position on track. The next time I came around, if it took like 1.5 seconds, then I would be up in the green by 0.1 second. So that's roughly how that works. Let's see. So limitations and assumptions is basically like I was saying. My Delta app doesn't care about your best lap exactly. It's just recording your best time to every single position on track, and it just makes it a little simpler. I may try to add that logic at some point in the future. There's the potential on some tracks, depending on how the rules for the race are set up. It's not really anywhere you can cut here on this track. I guess maybe you could try to cut this corner or something, but if you did cut a corner, you could potentially gain time illegally, and that would maybe throw off the performance delta. So let's see. Let's go through these. So adjust the intensity. My app, this number, if you're doing better, if your times are decreasing consistently, then this number will be bright if you allow the adjust intensity to be on. If your times are worse, or getting worse, you're trending in a bad direction, then it will dim. And so this is just sort of a way, as you're driving, you're probably almost always just looking up here. You're not actually looking at these numbers. You don't have time for that. So you're looking up here, and you're looking at your apexes and your turns coming up. But you can still sort of see this thing in your peripheral as you're looking up here. You see it. You see that it's orange. And orange for my app means you're in between 0.25 and 0.5. You're within that range of your best time to that specific position on track. If you were in the 0.01 to 0.25 range, it'd be yellow. And that's basically just to say, like, hey, you're close. You're pretty close to your best lap time. But you're not quite there. And if you're better, then it's green. You're going faster. You got to this position on track sooner than you ever did before. Then it's green. And then mine, if you are at that position on track and you're 0.5 seconds behind your best time, then it's red. To say, like, hey, you're off the pace, man. You got to pick it up. So that's the adjust intensity, and you can have this kind of brighten and dim to show you trending, so you don't have to actually look at it to see if you're doing better or worse. And then the color changes kind of help with that as well. Like if you get a really good exit out of a corner and you're going down the straightaway, and you see that it's going from like red to orange to yellow, then oh, I'm making some progress. I got a really good exit. So you can get the information that way. And again, you see that in your peripheral without ever looking at it. So that's really nice. Reset during the pits. If I'm doing like an endurance race and I have like a couple pits, I just generally like for the performance delta to reset completely. And I don't want to compare my stint that I'm on right now to whatever my stint was before, because things can change, from one stint to the next. And so it's nice just to have that like a reset button. You can turn this off. You can disable it. You don't have to use that. Hide the icon. It just hides. Here's the AC icon that a lot of the apps get, and you can just hide the icon, and it just puts it off screen somewhere, and you don't see it. I'm not gonna go over this one. Oh, reset on compound switch. That's when you go from like medium tires to soft tires, and you don't want to compare those, because you could technically do that over the course of a race. You could start on softs and switch to mediums or something like that. And you could have this set to 1 so that you don't want to compare your times on the mediums to your times on the softs, because that would be no good. You obviously are not going to be as fast on the mediums, probably. Lower alpha, this just sets the lower alpha value for the adjusting intensity. And then I feel like 0.7's, I can still understand it, but it doesn't look like flickering too bad. Sometimes, you'll get an exit out of a corner, and these values from the position on track and your lap time estimate, you're so close to your previous best that it kind of flickers a little bit, and it's just due to this data being only so granular. And so your times here will sort of go up and down, just on like an infinitesimal level, like to the 4 digits, basically. And so it kind of flickers a little bit, and that's potentially annoying. The trend delay is supposed to try to mitigate some of that flickering. And so if you increase this value, then it's going to wait for a certain number of occurrences of you doing better before it considers that you're actually doing better, or vice versa in the other direction. You have to actually do worse for a certain number of occurrences, and then it says, okay, you're actually doing worse. So you can increase the trend delay if you feel like the adjust intensity is flickering too much. Just increase that number. It doesn't bother me too badly. I feel like the lower alpha value that I'm using for default is it's it communicates without being overbearing. You can change the size of the app and the scale of the font. It's pretty straightforward. You can use a little trial and error to see what works best for you. You can turn on 3-digit precision. I leave it off. And of course you see here, this is just 2 digits of precision. And I feel like that's easier for me to read. If I am going to look at it and try to read it as it's calculating, that's just easier for me. And they're showing 3 here. And you can turn that on if you want. The show lap time delay, as you cross the start finish, it will show you your lap time, and you can tell it how long you want the lap time to be on the screen. Background opacity, you can change this. I have mine set to 1. I'm not sure what the default is. I think it's probably like 0.7 or something like that. And I just decided I wanted to obscure whatever's behind it. I don't want to see. Yeah, and you'll see here in this instance, all of these apps that I have right here are basically obfuscating. They're blocking out the dash of the AMG. And the AMG would be trying to tell me data, but it would be potentially telling me data that's in conflict with the data that I'm getting from my apps. The shift light is going to try to tell me when to shift, and there's the shift lights under here, and those things are, I've got this telling me what to do. I don't need the other things telling me what to do, and having 2 sets of information that says the same thing. I don't want to see it, so I just block them out. Draw the border on or off. Draws the border to the app window. Full speed. I have this set up to only update once every 1/10 of a second. You can turn on full speed, and it will update. I think it's 60 times a second. And I think that's basically what the frequency of all the apps in Assetto Corsa is. 60 updates per second. Pretty sure that's true. And this is the allowed tires out. So, earlier I was kind of saying that, maybe you cut a corner. You cut a corner and it increased your lap time. And it was an illegal cut. You weren't within the proper track boundaries. If you set this to, say, 3, then it would allow you to have 3 tires out, but then once the 4th tire went out, then it would basically disregard the rest of your lap for the performance delta. It would not consider anything else that you did after that point. So that's a way to, if you just don't want it tracking that errant mistake. I personally, like, if I take tires out, I go off track in a way that, I think is probably illegal, I just sort of back off a little. Because that's, kind of what you would end up doing in a real race, potentially. If you went off track and then there was somebody next to you, you'd have to, cede that position to them and then sort of just come in behind and tuck in. So, that's the I&I. So reading the delta, I'm going to talk about this a little bit, then maybe I'll be able to demonstrate it. I'm not sure if me trying to demonstrate it will actually work, but we'll see what happens. So when you're going into a corner, if you, and I think the AC delta sort of works the same way as what mine does. And I think they're kind of technically a little bit similar on the backside. If you're overdriving the corner, then your position on your time to that specific position on track is going to look really good, and it's going to go into the green because you got to that position on track faster than you ever had before, say like right here. But the problem is you're overdriving the corner and you've got too much speed and you can't make that corner effectively. You're going to slide out and potentially hit the kitty litter or a wall or something like that, or just go into the area that doesn't have as much traction. So So it'll look like you're doing really well coming into the corner. You know, it'll go into the green, and then up, you overshot, you blew it. Now you're having to get back on the track, and as you're getting back on the track, your performance delta is probably going into the red. And then by the time you get onto the straight, and then it's obviously like, yeah, I blew that corner. So generally, I would suggest that you can't read the performance delta, or you have to be very, very careful reading the performance delta going into corners. Corner entry and like mid corner, it's just, it happens so fast. You should probably be thinking about your corner entry and your mid corner speed and trying to get the exit right. It's not the time to be thinking about your performance delta. The time to think about your performance delta is when you've tracked out and you're heading down the next straightaway, and you get, you know, you're just on the gas, you're like clicking up through your gears, you got a little bit of breathing room, and then you, okay, check the delta. What's the delta say? Is this number moving in a good direction? Like, am I moving towards the green? Because if I am, then I got a good exit. You know, and you may even look at the number at that point. You actually stop looking up here and you look here just for just a moment, and you'll see if this number is going like, you know, 28, 27, 26, 25, moving towards the 0. It's like, okay, all right, I got a pretty good exit out of that, or better than I did before. Okay, so that's all of that. I'm going to actually fire up and try to drive and talk at the same time, which could go horribly wrong. Okay. And I've got both the performance deltas up right here, and I'm gonna, so you can see them both working at the same time. And you can see that they're basically telling the same information. Those numbers look pretty similar. And I'm not gonna drive super fast laps. I'm trying to keep these a little consistent and easy so I don't make a huge mistake. And those numbers look equivalent. So that went in, got a little brighter there, suggesting I was doing pretty good. I'll try to put in a decent lap here. Get some more relevant numbers. There's the lap time. So here I'm in the green, it's counting up, that means I got a pretty good exit on that corner. And here working in the right direction, pretty good exit on that corner, although it's holding steady a little bit. Probably because I'm talking. I'm going to try to scrub some time here. Now, I'm going to overdrive this next corner a lot, and it'll go green. And then, see, so, like I overdrove the corner. Going into it, it got really green, but obviously that was way too hot. So, green going into a corner, sometimes that's bad. Sometimes that's impending doom. Go ahead and just reset this. So on the first lap, you'll notice that these things aren't telling you anything, and it's because I restarted the session, so there's no data to give you, which is why they do that. And this will take about a minute and a half to get around, and we'll start getting some information. And we are at the Red Bull Ring because that is where my league race is on Thursday. So I need to get some practice in. And this is pretty much what my screen looks like during races, minus the Kunos Performance Delta, because I don't ever use it. But it's up there just for purposes of demonstration. And you can see down there below the shift light, it's the local time. And that's because we reset. You can ignore that number right there. It'll clear up here very shortly. So here, I'm not bad. I'm in the yellow, but from the Kunos app, you couldn't really tell. You'd have to look at it to see what your time is. And that green-red bar is really just more about trending. It's not about absolute data. And here you can see the yellow, so not bad, but if you keep it in the yellow, that's probably okay. You can't have your best lap every lap. So anyway, that's that. And I think that's the majority of information that I wanted to cover. So if you have questions, post up to the forums, or on YouTube, I guess would be fine. And thanks for watching and using the apps. And if you have any ideas to make them better, things like that, then please communicate that information to me. And hope you guys have a good evening, and I'll see you racing.